The 2021 teleconference carries the theme Fashioning Philippine Textile Towards a Sustainable Creative Economy. It acknowledges the sustainable development is not just about tempering the winds of turbines or grinding of gears. It emphasizes creativity and how it creates and enhances value across commodities, traditional skills and knowledge domains, and right at the very core of the innovation framework. Inseparable creativity is the human being whose seemingly endless capacity to generate ideas and solutions, and yes, even new problems, allow the progression of humanity and its capacity to be able to respond to its environment. This is the core of the theme of this year. By fashioning, we highlight the infinite iterations and permutations of Philippine textiles, the materials, the technologies that brought them forth, the systems by which they are being produced, being traded, consumed, and managed, and we highlight its enabling capacity to be an expression or a support to the expression of creative ideas. We have identified three sub-themes for the conference. One is resiliency, the second one is inclusivity, and the third is sustainability. Three core ideas that are interrelated and complementary upon which R&D and innovation strategies are hinged. We are extremely privileged and honored that our speakers have accepted our invitations. So we now proceed with the first cluster. This is on resiliency. On resiliency, we have three speakers. And our first speaker will talk about the opportunities and prospects of a creative textile economy. Our speaker obtained her BS in Business Economics cum laude and her MA and PhD in Economics from the University of the Philippines and has completed her advanced studies in International Economic Policy Research at the Kiel Institute of World Economics in Germany. She fulfills a key role in the formulation and implementation of the Inclusive Innovation Industrial Strategy, which puts innovation at the heart of the country's new industrial policy. She is a member of the Board of Governors of the Philippine Board of Investment. From the Competitiveness and Innovation Group of the Department of Trade and Industry, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Undersecretary Dr. Rafaelita M. Aldaba.
Very good morning, everyone. Kong Tof de Venecia, our driver and anchor. Commissioner Eileen Lizada, PTRI Director Celia Elumba. Ladies and gentlemen, good morning. Well, just to contextualize the industry, I would like to look back at the past, because I think it's really important for us to understand where we are. We need to look at the past. And during the 60s and the 70s, the textile industry was a heavily protected sector. Very high tariffs, and at the same time, there were import restrictions. So you cannot just import the materials, the fabrics, and garments. As a result, the industry developed with a low profitability level, inefficient use of resources, domestic resources, high cost, low quality textiles, and it was unable to export and link with the garments industry. Given the very high tariffs during that time, along with the import restrictions affecting the industry, smuggling was a rampant problem. In fact, statistics during those time indicated that almost 25% of sales in Divisoria were smuggled products. During those times, we had a synthetic fiber manufacturer, and that was Philsin. It was a monopoly, and it was heavily protected using tools such as tariffs along with import restrictions. There was also a regulation during that time that required all textile manufacturers to source their fiber from Philsin. So in the 80s, what we had was an aging, was an industry with aging and ill-maintained equipment, underutilized capacity, and an inefficient vertical integration, which was the way companies back then were organized. Although if you look at other countries during those times, they were their organization was not vertical, but rather horizontal. So they did not, in the case of the Philippines, spinning, weaving, finishing, all these were combined together in one factory. But in the cases of Korea, for example, or Hong Kong, that was not the case. And so in the 80s, we had a program, the tariff reform program, along with an import liberalization plan that reduced protection across different sectors in the country. And of course, textile was part of that. And all these items, by the way, all these bullet points that you see on the slide were from a 1986 paper. And the conclusions of the paper were, number one, after 25 years behind complex system of protection against imports, the textile industry remained inefficient. Although there were signs, by the way, that after liberalization, there were improvements that were seen in the efficiency of the industry. The other important recommendation of the paper is that without government support, import liberalization would make it doubly difficult for the industry to maintain its position. Like what I've said, there were already signs of improvement after the liberalization, but then what the paper was focusing on was on the need for additional government support. Adjustment assistance to be provided to workers and firms who were injured or adversely threatened from import competition, measures to make firms strong enough to increase their market shares and revive their capabilities. Remember that they would be competing against imported materials. The creation of new employment opportunities, promotion of expansion, based on efficiency segments of the industry, provide new trainings in order to help displaced workers, because there were companies that died as a result of the liberalization, and support activities that would improve product quality, business efficiency, training of staff, along with facilitation of mergers. And the last item was the removal of monopoly on the input side and allow the importation of raw materials, because given the inefficiencies on the input side, your textile industry cannot be efficient, because it's going to be high cost given that you have a monopoly. So why am I presenting this? Well, as you've seen, many of the issues back then, over 30 years ago, are still present in the current industry, in the present. So after over 30 years, just to share with you, this is the performance of and the current state of our textile industry. There are around 996 establishments, and mostly they are engaged in the manufacture of made-up textile materials, around 40% of the total. 25% are in the manufacture of carpets and rugs, and in terms of weaving, they consist only 14% of the total. And this would include companies like Indophil, Asiatex, Solid, Weavertex, Medtex, and Universal Weavers. On the slide, you would also see the economic performance of the industry measured by the gross value added of the sector from 2013 up to 2019. And as you can see, in terms of its GDP contribution, this is really very, very small, less than 1%. In 2009, it contributed 0.45%. And in 2019, this was further reduced to 0.26. So this is an indication of this, while of course it has a lot of potentials, but in terms of its current contribution, it's really very small. Um, Also, in terms of the contribution to our total employment, it's also less than 1%, 0.26 of total employment in the country. From 128,000 workers in 2016, this was even further reduced to almost 109,000 workers in 2019. The other charts that I'm going to show would also depict the same performance of the industry. Value of output, this has been declining as shown by this chart. And in terms of employment, so given the decline in output, decline in its contribution to the total economy, in terms of the employment creation, this also shows a declining trend. Now, in the case of productivity of workers, we can see in here, in 1999, at 698,000, this went up to 895,000 per worker. This is value of output per worker, by the way, which is our indicator for productivity. This went up to 896,000 in 2006. And in 2012, as you can see, there's not much change. It more or less still remained the same. Now, what would explain this dismal performance are the following challenges confronting the textile industry, which, as you can see, are still the same problems that we faced way back in the 1980s. Lack of supply of raw materials, outdated equipment, high cost of labor. But whereas in the 80s, the cost of labor was not really a problem, but nowadays it's been a problem, high cost of labor. And hence, we've lost our competitiveness to other countries. We have an underdeveloped upstream industry linkage, given that our production and for cotton, production of cotton also declined in 1993. And hence we have to rely on importation from the US as well as from the EU. And given the high cost of production, labor, high cost of electricity, along with imported raw materials, all this resulted in low productivity in the industry. And with the removal of import restrictions and lower tariffs, we've also seen the rise of the ukay-ukay, or the second-hand clothes from Hong Kong and South Korea, which of course is affecting the local garments industry. And while tariffs are already low, still technical smuggling has been rampant and is still a major problem of the sector. So like what I've said, cotton production declined. And in here, you can clearly see the decline in terms of the area planted to cotton. And in here, we've reached actually 35,000 hectares in the early 90s. And then it just fell. And currently, I think this is even less than 10 hectares planted to cotton. But the good news is, one piece of good news after all the bad news that I've been saying, well, I think one bright spot is given by this chart. You can see in here the production of natural fiber. So this chart would give us the area being planted to natural fibers such as abaca, which is the highest in here, the green line that you see. And then you have banana, and this gray line, this represents pineapple. And as we know, we have, the popularity of Piñatex. I hope we can come up with something similar to that. And in terms of sources of natural fiber, you can see that across the different regions in the country, we all have, especially pineapple, banana, and then also abaca. And these are grown in various regions in the country. And total is 132,000 for abaca, 88,000 for banana, and almost 66,000 hectares for pineapple. But of course, while this represents a huge potential for the industry, I think it's really important at this point for us to really come up with a more market-oriented research on these natural fibers, along with a market study that would assess the potential demand along with the other opportunities for natural fibers towards more sustainable textile innovation. I think that's really very important. Now, just to again illustrate the trade performance of the industry, as you can see, this green line that you see. These are the imports, textile imports, while this blue line here, dark blue line, would represent the exports of the industry. And for the more recent figures, you can see that in terms of imports, it's 891 million, while exports are 282 million. So you have this rising external trade deficit arising from the industry because exports are very small while our imports are rising. So, well, while of course it really adds to the deficits of the country, but at the same time, this could represent a potential opportunity for us to really develop the industry and we try to identify those currently imported materials that can be produced locally. And for instance, if you look at the contribution to total exports, it has also, well, slowly rising, but very small from 0.001, almost negligible in previous years. But currently, in terms of the contribution of the sector, it's at 0.5% of our total exports for 2020. And what are our top exports? These are other made-up articles, floor cloths, dishcloths, other woven fabrics made of man-made fibers, also from cotton, woven fabrics, along with made-up fishing nets. And top imported products would consist of other made-up articles, including dress patterns, other knitted or crocheted fabrics of synthetic fibers, other knitted or crocheted fabrics using other textile materials, along with other woven fabrics, textured polyester filaments, and so on. Looking now at the garment sector, again, this is the picture here is the opposite of what we saw in the textile industry. Because in here, the green line would give the imports of the garments industry, while the red line would show us the exports. But as you can see, the exports are actually declining. Imports are quite small relative to the exports, but they have been rising, as you can see, from 2010 to 2019. And there is a huge surplus, in particular during the years from 2006 up to 2009, 2011, and for some years. But after 2014, look at the, given the weak performance of our garment sector, the surpluses have been eroded, as you can see on the slide, getting smaller and smaller, especially in 2019. Well, 2020 might be an abnormal year, but still the story is true of our declining surpluses. And in terms of the contribution, in 2000, the sector contributed 4.3% to our total exports, and this declined to 1% in 2020. So, well, just to mention some of our top 20 exports, these are women's or girls' blouses, shirts, along with hats and headgear, knitted or crocheted. And then in terms of the imports, men's or boys' trousers of cotton. Like what I've mentioned, we don't have cotton in the country, so we have to import all of this. T-shirts of cotton again, and then garments made up of fabrics, not knitted or crocheted. Okay. So to continue, well, the next slide shows our participation in the textile and garments global value chain. You can see in here the different segments of the global value chain, from raw materials to component and sub-assembly, final assembly, distribution, design, marketing, and sales. We are not present here in design. We are here, by the way, in terms of the garments, we are in final assembly. In fact, we still have a comparative advantage in cut, measure, and trim, which are the stages covered under final assembly. And we're not able to contribute substantially in the other segments of the value chain, given the weak, current weak state of our textile industry. Okay. So after 30 years, now let's look at potential products where the opportunities are. And these are given here by the following products. We've used a measure called revealed comparative advantage in identifying where our potential comparative advantage lies. And we found this in coconut, in abaca, rami, and other vegetable textile fibers, along with twine, cordage, ropes, and cables, tapestries, hand-woven and needlework tapestries, along with fabrics that are woven fabrics, narrow-woven fabrics. Now, in terms of sectors where we lost our comparative advantage, these are in activities or products such as cotton sewing thread, man-made filament yarn, along with knitted or crocheted fabrics. And on the other side, you can see in here a SWOT analysis of the industry. And we included among our strengths, our skill. This is very important. Skill in handloom weaving. Of course, Kong Toff earlier mentioned Yabing Masalon Dulo, but apart from Yabing, there are other national living treasures because the Gawad sa Manlilikha ng Bayan has a category in textile or fiber art. So there, in weaving, you have Lang Dulay from Lake Cebu, and then Darhata Sawabi and others. Another strength would be the recognition of traditional textiles by our LGUs. They acknowledge that this is the handloom weaving is an important component of the local economy, and hence it has to be supported. And of course, our huge domestic market consisting of 110 million Filipinos. Among the weaknesses would be, I think I've already explained this thoroughly, the small size and the weak performance of our textile industry, lack of marketing and promotion plans. There's no linkage between our textile and our garments industry, high production costs, lack of cotton farms, and smuggling. For the opportunities, we have the homegrown textile weaving and production, which we can develop as a creative industry. And another important opportunity would be for us to tap our Filipino designers and creativity. And there are new technologies that we can avail, that we could adopt in order to improve the competitiveness of our industry. in this slide, we've identified various government support measures. Of course, the role of the DOST-PTRI would be very important, especially in terms of spurring the growth of the textile and the garments industry through the initiatives of PTRI in innovation and R&D. PTRI has the Regional Yarn Production and Innovation Center. And then there's also TESDA that we could tap in terms of developing new modules and courses on weaving and embroidery. The DTI-BOI for industry development, linking and integrating garments, textiles, and the fashion industry, providing incentives along with MSME and support for startups. We need to, of course, just to go through this really very important issues in the industry that we need to address in order for us to improve its competitiveness. Smuggling, again, maybe there's a need to revisit RA 4653 and see how we can strictly implement this law, providing financial assistance to MSMEs as well as support for innovative startups, increasing the area being planted to cotton and natural fibers. I think the OSC is looking at this BT cotton, adoption of more innovative processes, new technologies, R&D, product development, and the acceleration of the commercialization of textile R&D. So we really need to work closely together with PTRI, so DTI and PTRI together with the industry. Develop degree programs in textile and garment industry along with the fashion and fashion design programs, trainings on international standards and quality assurance leading to certification. All these are very important because while of course we want to serve the domestic market, the huge domestic market that the Philippines currently has, but at the same time, we want to be able to sell these products that we will be developing for the domestic market. We want to sell this to the global market and participate and deepen at the same time our participation in the global value chain that I've earlier shown as well. And for the other remaining slides, I think that there are other speakers who would discuss the Philippine Tropical Fabric Law, for instance, but just to mention, we are working together not only with PTRI, but as well as with the Civil Service Commission, the DBM, and the Philippine Fashion Coalition in implementing this protective outerwear project that aims to produce 3.8 million pieces of this is a non-medical grade PPE, which we call the protective outerwear or POW, for 6,000 government workers. And we will be signing an MOA with the DOST, PTRI, and the other government agencies, DBM and CSC. We are also looking forward to the issuance of an executive order in order for us to quickly implement this particular project, which would be like a phase one of the tropical of this earlier law that I've shown, tropical fabric law. Okay, and another opportunity, of course, would be the manufacturing repurposing program, wherein DTI and BOI are working together with the industry in terms of the production of high value and COVID critical products like face masks, PPEs, and well, hopefully in the very near future, we'll be able to develop the materials that would be needed by these two sectors, right? Because right now, the materials are being imported mostly from China. And so this is my concluding slide. We really need to revive and enhance the competitiveness of our creative textile industry. And I hope we could prioritize the formulation of a roadmap that would focus on innovation, market-oriented R&D, and measures to address the supply and value chain gaps. And this would also include logistics, the adoption of innovation and enabling technologies, developing a sustainable developing sustainable textile innovations using natural fibers and supporting our innovative startups and other enterprises. We need to improve the productivity of the industry, attract more investments, and upgrading our operations using new technologies. And again, the importance of strengthening the upstream and downstream linkages to make our supply and value chains more resilient. And lastly, we have to further strengthen and deepen the collaboration between government, industry, academe, and other stakeholders in order for us to grow and develop an innovative and competitive creative textile industry. Yeah, I think I'm going to stop there. Thank you for your attention.